Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Lex Luthor from Denied Reality here. Um, I'm gonna read this article. It's from Mental Floss. Maybe we can all learn something today. It's 10 facts about about internet's undersea cables. Since I'm a flat earther, I don't believe there's satellites, and this is how the internet is run throughout what you think is the globe. All right, so let's get to reading. This is by David W. Brown. It was November 12th, 2015. In describing the system of wires that compromises the internet, Neil Stephenson once compared the Earth to a computer motherboard. From telephone poles suspending bundles of cables to signs posted warning of buried fiber optic lines, we are surrounded by evidence that at a basic level, the internet is really just a spaghetti work of really long wires. But what we really see is just a small part of the physical makeup of the net. The rest of it can be found in the oldest depths of the ocean. Here are 10 things you might not know about the internet's systems of undersea cables. Let's see. Cable installation is slow, tedious, expensive work. Well, I think that everybody would know that installing wires or cables on the ocean probably be slow. Here's a picture of them putting some cable into the ocean right there. 99% of international data is transmitted by wires at the bottom of the ocean called submarine communications cables. In total, they are hundreds of thousands of miles long and can be as deep as Everest is tall. The cables are installed by special boats called cable layers. It's more than a matter of dropping wires with anvils attached to them. The cables must generally be run across flat surfaces of the ocean's floor. Flat surfaces of the ocean's floor. And care is taken to avoid coral reefs, sunken ships, fish beds, and other ecological habitats and general obstructions. The diameter of a shallow water cable is about the same as a soda can, while deep water cables are much thinner and about the size of a magic marker. The size difference is related to simple vulnerability. There's not much going on 80,000 feet below sea level. Consequently, there's less need for galvanized shielding wire. Cables located at shallow depths are buried beneath the ocean floor using high pressured water jets. Though per mile prices for installation change depending on total length and destination, running a cable across the ocean invariably costs hundreds of millions of dollars. Sharks are trying to eat the internet. Let's watch this real quick. There, you can see the cables right there. Here comes a shark. I wonder what the excuse would be if your cable went down because a shark bit the line. Is he gonna bite another one? Alright, well, you've seen him bite it. There's a disagreement as to why exactly sharks like gnawing on submarine communication cables. Maybe it has something to do with the electromagnetic fields. Maybe they're just curious. Maybe they're trying to disrupt our communication infrastructure before mounting a land-based assault. Yeah, that's likely, right here. The point remains that sharks are chewing on the internet and sometimes damage it. In response, companies such as Google are shielding their cables in shark-proof wire wrappers. The internet is as vulnerable underwater as it is underground. It seems like every couple of years, some well-meaning construction worker puts his bulldozer in gear and kills Netflix for the whole continent. That would really suck. while the ocean is free of construction equipment that might otherwise combine to form devastator. There are many ongoing aquatic threats to the submarine cables. Sharks aside, the internet is ever at risk being disrupted by boat anchors, trawling by fish vessels, and natural disasters. A Toronto-based company has proposed running a cable through the Arctic that connects Tokyo and London. This was previously considered impossible, but climate change and the melting ice caps have moved the proposal firmly into a doable but really expensive category. Number 4. Connecting the world through undersea cables isn't exactly new. Oh, let's see here. In 1814, installation began on the first transatlantic telegraph cable which connected Newfoundland and Ireland. 4 years later, the first transmission was sent, reading Laws, White House received 5-minute signal, coil signals too weak to relay, try drive slow and regular. I have put intermediate pulley, reply by coils. This is admittedly not very inspiring. White House referred to Wildman Whitehouse, the chief electrician of the Atlantic Telegraph Company, who we've discussed previously. For historical context, during those 4 years of cable construction, Charles Dickens was still writing novels. Walt Whitman published Leaves of Grass. A small settlement called Dallas was formerly incorporated in Texas. And Abraham Lincoln, candidate for the U.S. Senate, gave his House Divided speech. So they were laying underground cables and everything, underwater cables, since Abraham Lincoln was giving speeches. That's good to know. During the height of the Cold War, the USSR, spies love underwater cables. That's number 5. During the height of the Cold War, the USSR often transmitted weakly encoded messages between two of its major naval bases. Strong encryption was a bother and also overkill, thought Soviet officers, as the bases were directly linked by an undersea cable located in Sensorladen Soviet territorial waters. No way would the Americans risk World War III by trying to somehow access and tap that cable. They didn't count on the USS Halibut with a specially fitted submarine capable of slipping by Soviet defenses. The American submarine found the cable and installed a giant wiretap, returning monthly to gather the transmissions it had recorded. This operation was called Ivy Bells. Maybe we should research that too. Ivy Bells was later compromised by a former NSA analyst named Ronald Pelton, who sold information on the mission to the Soviets. Today, tapping submarine communications is standard operating procedure for spy agencies. So, pretty much all the lines underwater are tapped. Number 6. Governments are turning to submarine cables to avoid said spies. With respect to electronic espionage, one big advantage held by the United States is the key role its scientists, engineers, and corporations played in inventing and building large parts of the global telecommunications infrastructure. Major lines of data tend to cross into American borders and territorial water, making wiretapping a breeze, relatively speaking. When the documents stolen by former NSA analyst Edward Snowden came to light, many countries were outraged to learn the extent to which American spy agencies were intercepting foreign data. As a result, some countries are reconsidering the infrastructure of the internet itself. Brazil, for example, has launched a project to build a submarine communications cable to Portugal that not only bypasses the United States entirely, but also specifically excludes U.S. companies from involvement. Submarine communications cables are faster and cheaper than satellites. There are well over 1,000 satellites in orbit. We are landing probes on comets, and we are planning missions to Mars. We are living in the future. It just seems self-evident that space would be a better way to virtually wire the internet than our current method of running really long cable slash shark buffets along the ocean floor. Surely satellites would be better than or be a better technology or better than a technology invented before the invention of a telephone, right? As it turns out, no, or at least not yet. Though fiber optic cables and communication satellites were both developed in the 1960s, satellites have a twofold problem: latency and bit loss. Sending and receiving signals to and from space takes time. Meanwhile, researchers have developed optical fibers that can transmit information at 99.7% the speed of light. For an idea of what the internet would be like without undersea cables, visit Antarctica, the only continent without a physical connection to the net. Oh. The continent relies on satellites, and bandwidth is at a premium, which is no small problem when one considers the important data intensive climate research underway. Today, Antarctic research stations produce more data than they can transmit through space. Number 8, forget cyber warfare. To really cripple the internet, you need scuba gear and a pair of wire cutters. The good news is that it isn't too hard to cut through a submarine communications cable, if only because of the thousands of very lethal volts running through each of them. The bad news is that it is possible. As seen in Egypt in 2013, there, just north of Alexandria, men in wetsuits were apprehended having intentionally cut through the Southeast Asia, Middle East, West Europe 4 cable, which runs 12,500 miles and connects 3 continents. Internet speeds in Egypt were crippled by 60% until the line could be repaired. Number 9. Underwater cables are not easy to repair, but after 150 years, we've learned a trick or two. If you think replacing that one Ethernet cable you can't quite reach behind your desk is a pain, try replacing a solid broken garden hose at the bottom of the ocean. But that would be quite a task. When a submarine cable is damaged, special repair ships are dispatched. If the cable is located in the shallow waters, robots are deployed to grab the cable and haul it to the surface. If the cable is in deep waters, 6,500 feet or greater, the ships lower specially designed grapnels that grab onto the cable and hoist it up for mending. To make things easier, grapnels sometimes cut the damaged cable in two, and repair ships raise each end separately for patching above the water. The internet's undersea backbone is built to last for 25 years. As of 2014, there are 285 communication cables at the bottom of the ocean, and 22 of them are not yet in use. These are called dark cables. Once they are switched on, they are said to be lit. Submarine cables have a life expectancy of 25 years, during which time they are considered economically viable from a capacity standpoint. Over the last decade, however, global data consumption has exploded. In 2013, internet traffic was 5 gigabytes per capita. This number is expected to reach 14 gigabytes per capita by 2018. Such an increase would obviously pose a capacity problem and require more frequent cable upgrades. However, new techniques in phase modulation and improvements in submarine line terminal equipment (SLTE) have boosted capacity in some places by as much as 8,000%. The wires we have are more than ready for traffic to come. I don't know. See, they still bring up satellites in this thing. But, I mean, if there were satellites in orbit and we got an actual legitimate picture of the Earth from space, I'm sure we would see some satellites in it. And it's funny, we never see a satellite cross in front of the moon. Supposedly only the ISS every now and then. I don't know. You may comment what you guys think about that below. I know all the internet's ran under the ocean, and you should too. Talk to y'all later.